Lucian. Whether you're a seasoned marksman main or a fledgling AD carry aspirant, this guide aims to unlock the full potential of this dual-wielding sentinel. From early game dominance to late game carry potential, we'll explore the nuances of Lucian's kit, itemization, positioning, and the strategic mindset required to dance through the battlefield with deadly precision. In terms of overall playstyle, I would consider Lucian a very high skill cap and very well put together AD carry. He has a lot of carry potential, a lot of pressure at pretty much every stage of the game, and has a lot of flexibility in terms of repositioning himself in fights, choosing priority targets, and even just maximizing his output. He's mechanically very rewarding and very satisfying, and there's a lot of components to this that allow him to excel in each stage of the game. From a draft perspective, Lucian's pretty well-rounded, and historically speaking, you can pretty much just blind him a lot of the time. And he's able to be picked with both types of supports, being enchanters and aggressive engaged champions, which is something that not many champions can actually go for. Although he has some bad matchups against champions like Draven or Ashe or even Caitlyn and things of that nature, Lucian usually has a way to navigate around this and find his windows, especially in the early game, and it's generally meaningful to just pick him in the early phases anyway, since he's such a high priority pick and can provide so much pressure. So if you're aiming to put a lot of games on Lucian and potentially trying to main him, I wouldn't say it's a really big concern from a draft perspective. He's very flexible, his kit is very well rounded, and he's just ultimately useful in pretty much every scenario.
Alright, let's touch on Lucian's abilities. So let's start with Lightslinger, which is his passive here. This is arguably his bread and butter as well, and you might have seen this in action a lot with a lot of Lucian combos. Basically, whenever Lucian uses an ability, it empowers his next auto attack to essentially be a double shot. There's a second component where Lucian's next two auto attacks can be buffed whenever there's a nearby ally that gives him a heal or a shield, or if a nearby enemy champion is immobilized by one of your allies. This gives him the potential to have an incredible amount of all-in output, and it's very satisfying to kind of weave in multiple components of this. And we'll talk about the use cases of the passive in a bit. Lucian's Q is Piercing Light. It's simple enough in terms of using it, but I would say it's harder to master. So basically it's a point and click ability which lets Lucian shoot a beam of light, and it damages all targets that are hit by it. So the way it works is that it's actually point and click, but you can skill shot it as well. Do note that the cast time of this ability goes up, or goes down rather, with level. So in the early game, there's a little bit of a delay between when you actually fire the ability and when it goes off. And this means that there is an opportunity for enemy laners to actually dodge it, and there's a little bit of counterplay there. So that's something to keep in mind. You can time this ability to when the enemy laner is trying to CS, or if you think they're gonna stand still in that specific moment of time, things of that nature. Lucian's W is Ardent Blaze, and it shoots a beam of light or a missile in a star shape, and basically reveals enemies. The kicker here is that when enemies are hit by it and then Lucian damages them, it actually gives Lucian movement speed. So this is great for, I guess, also harass, but mainly as an all-in tool, because you want to lead your combos with this ability, and then you can just kind of keep up the chase with the big boost of movement speed you get. Lucian's E, Relentless Pursuit, is a dash. That's pretty much it. The whole point of it is to just give him an auto attack reset for his passive, in which case it actually gains cooldown reduction when using passive autos. So let's say Lucian's E, he gets a double shot. Each auto of the double shot will reduce his E cooldown by 1 second each. This is actually doubled to 2 seconds against champions. So for each instance of his double shot, he actually gets up to 4 seconds off his E cooldown. What you can do to actually buffer multiple shots at once in order to get a fast combo with the E as well is priming your passive. This will mainly be done with your W, and then firing your first set of 2 autos, dashing while those 2 bullets are actually flying across. So this puts your dash on cooldown. Then while those 2 autos connect, you fire your next set of 2 autos, which is 4 autos, right? And then that basically, when they all connect, it should be 4 rapid fire autos, and then you get 8 seconds off of your cooldown for your E, even though you just casted it. This requires tight timing as well, because you actually have to short dash, right? I'll call it a short hop if you're familiar with fighting game tech. Basically, Lucian's ability to attack right after the E is dictated by how far he dashes. So at first you can do a normal dash and you can dash the full distance, and then you will be able to auto attack at a like normal pace, I would say. But if you want to do 4 autos in a row, a rapid fire, you can do a really short dash because this allows Lucian to finish the dash faster and subsequently auto attack faster. Lastly, we have the culling, which is basically Lucian firing a whole array of bullets in a single line. Lucian can reposition, like walk around and dash, but the bullets are going to continue to fire in that specific direction, so you're basically committed. Lucian can cancel this early in case you are finished dealing with your target or you missed or anything like that. So there's that. Talking on runes, I would say Lucian runes are pretty standard for the most part. So the main page I would say you want to go is a press the attack page, and that's going to be a precision page. That's going to involve press the attack, presence of mind because he's very mana hungry and really loves that rune, legend bloodline or legend alacrity depending on your support, I would say, if you have a champion that has sustain or not, and that's going to be the dictator there. And then taking coup de grace or cut down depending on if you have an important tank target that you can't really melt through otherwise. Then you're basically going to take inspiration every game because you want really strong lane presence, so you can go magical footwear plus biscuit delivery. Instead of magical footwear, there's a new rune called triple tonic, which gives you 3 basically little pots. I want to say the elixirs, right? The baby elixirs. And they give you little boosts, and they're really helpful for matchups where you really need that early game oomph, or it's really contingent on having a couple of good trades in the early phases. So that's where I would say it's helpful there. The only other tech I would say instead of taking either of those two would probably be matchups where you need cleanse, and you need to cleanse often, and then you can probably take Cosmic Insight. But that's a really rare case, and I wouldn't probably recommend it that much. The other page that I wouldn't recommend that much is actually a first strike page. This is definitely a do not try this at home sort of page, but it's really cool because it's very burst focused, and I would say it's for players that are getting more used to the champion. So it's a first strike opener, obviously, for your keystone. Then you follow with either boots or triple tonic, biscuits, and then either Cosmic Insight or Time Warp tonic, depending on what you want to go for. For your adaptive stats, it's going to be the same every time. You've got attack speed, adaptive force, and armor, unless you're facing a full magic damage bot lane, and then you can probably go for MR. Items I'm not going to touch on too much because I would say Lucian is also extremely flexible, and I want this guy to be pretty timeless. So I'm going to give you with more of like a mindset or principle to build. And there's really not much anyway because Lucian is extremely flexible in his builds. There's a lot of different builds that have worked for him in the past. So he's great with even standard AD carry, just like full crit builds. He's also cool with like the more spellcaster type builds, like you've seen things like Kraken Slayer with Navori Quick Blades. It lets him really become a spell slinger and just spam his abilities, E all over the place. It feels really badass. Like there's things of that nature. There's also more off meta builds. So we've seen things like really old school like Bork and Black Cleaver, and he's really good with a lot of other on-hit items. I've even seen some like really weird like lethality burst builds before, but that's definitely not like ideal. It's just whatever. I would honestly just say we'll go with whatever is being built on the patch and whatever seems strong based on what items are available, and then you can go from there. One thing to note is that I would say it's generally priced into Lucian's kit that he doesn't need to build as defensively as normal because he needs to focus on getting as much output as possible. So you don't want to build too many defensive items. You kind of just want to dodge everything. It sounds kind of funny, but it is kind of true because otherwise he's not going to have like an insane amount of output compared to things like hyper carries. So I would say it is important to just push your limits, try to dodge things, and get as much output out there. In terms of team fighting, I would say it is very feel-based for Lucian. This is not something that you're going to just be able to be told and know what to do, because there's a mix of both being able to play front to back on Lucian, but also identifying key targets when necessary, because he can kind of play both styles. You kind of just have to sit back each game, understand, all right, how does my team win the team fight? Objectively speaking, how do my 5 champions, including myself as Lucian, interact with the enemy 5 champions? And then we see what happens there. And then we see how we can play out these fights. In addition, one thing to note is that Lucian's very gated by his range in terms of auto attacking. So having your damage uptime is very important, and mixing up your tools to kind of keep up that output is a key factor here as a Lucian player. So let's say if you're walking into 500 range, which is Lucian's range, and you get one shot, Okay, maybe you can't do that. So maybe you got to use your abilities. So let's say you're spacing out, you're standing a little bit further out. You can use your calling there. That's where a lot of players use their calling at the highest level. You want to not actually just use it for damage. You want to use it for damage in the sense that you otherwise can't deal damage. Using the calling for killing a priority target can be helpful, but it's also very helpful to identify when you can save your calling for times of need in terms of being able to auto or damage from very far away. So it really is contingent. It takes reps to understand, okay, why did my team fight go wrong, and then what to do to adjust for that. And as you get games and more games in, you're going to understand like that's how it's a very free flowing in terms of team fighting. So that's pretty much it, I would say, in terms of the way Lucian flows and everything like that. This is from a baseline level, most of what you would need to know to kind of understand the champion and its dynamics. So off to the races you go, and good luck out there. Really hope this guy was helpful to you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.